good, man?
You don't know how happy this makes me. My phone is blowing up. Yeah.
Go ahead.
My phone is blowing up, and it is just my friends with screenshots of Odd Shopper. Just what bets, what parlays do I make?
Beautiful.
For Thursday night. Like, this I couldn't feel more like a company man right now.
Spread awareness, baby. Let's go.
That's great.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to theawesome.com. Oh, I did it. I've been so good at that.
Oh, you have.
Well, you would have done it too, apparently, because you didn't catch it until 5 seconds after I said it. You didn't even know what I was talking about. Well, welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Marathon Matchup Strategy Show. As we have so aptly termed this one, because we hit on every game. It's everything you need going into Sunday's slate. We got you covered right here in the next hour and a half. Is this show longer than others? Yes. Is it more informative than others? Yes. Is it better than others? Yes. And we're happy to have you guys with us. As always, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below if you're listening after the fact. If you're in podcast form, subscribe, leave a review, rating, all that stuff helps us greatly. I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Joined as always by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Here we go, man. 12 games. What's up?
I'm doing great, man. And obviously people are already talking about their substances of choice in the chat. Jose apparently went too hard. He's tripping already before game one. But that's just how things go on the marathon matchups. Yeah, we'll try to go a little bit faster. That's one of the comments we got, but we can't guarantee anything. We like to talk, but we had some really great games in week one. Now we got some more info heading into this 12-game main slate in week two. Let's dig in.
Let's do it. And if you're looking for content for Thursday Night Football, Matt Kajeski and I just did a full show on that. It was a phenomenal show. We'd love to have, if you're looking for that, you can check that out and come back to this one. You'll find that one. It's the strategy show for Chargers Chiefs. Phenomenal game. I got all my betting picks on the Odd Shopper channel for that and for Sunday's games. And if you're looking for start sit advice and all of that good stuff, Matt's got you covered over at the Fantasy Football channel as well as we head into week two. Yeah, Larry, I got my water, Diet Coke, roast beef, and turkey roll-ups. Yeah, it might be enough. Any good ones? Usually
Roast
there's always
beef
some really
turkey.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah. Usually there's some very creative ones in here.
And oh man, the red zone of NFL DFS. That is a high compliment. That means a lot. Thanks, guys. And yeah, we appreciate you a lot for hanging out. Excited to go. Week two.
All right. So if you guys are wondering, with this one, with this show, we decided last year, it was Matt's idea, and it was a good one at that, to go highest totals first, right? So once we get to some of these games towards the end, probably won't be spending as much time on it. You can thank us for that in advance. But we're going to go highest totals first. Not always the highest ownership. Some teams spread things around, but the games that are, generally most appealing. So we'll kick it off. Number one here with Arizona at the Las Vegas Raiders, 51.5 point total. Raiders laying 5.5 at home. And I've got to tell you, man, that secondary for the Cardinals, I expected them to be pretty bad. And, against Patrick Mahomes, sure. I didn't expect them to be that bad. There was zero resistance whatsoever for that defense last week. Granted, against the preeminent quarterback in the league, but still. And now on the other side, Derek Carr is no Patrick Mahomes, and he did struggle against a good Chargers defense, but you have Devontae Adams who had a 46% target share last week. You have Darren Waller just signed a fat contract. You got Hunter Renfrow, who's a very good slot receiver. They got some weapons here. So this game, I think it does have some shootout potential for sure, and it's by far the highest total on the slate.
100%. Tons of shootout potential, and we can caveat it all we want. We can say small sample. We can say Patrick Mahomes. But I actually saw a breakdown on Twitter, I believe, it was very, very simple. If they were in man coverage, Kansas City saw man, they were just targeting whoever Isaiah Simmons was covering, and they torched him. And when they switched to zone because Isaiah Simmons was getting torched so much by Travis Kelce and co., Mahomes just picks zone apart. You can't play zone all game long against Mahomes and not get to the quarterback from a pressure standpoint. So really, really simple game plan, if you will, executed perfectly by Kansas City. Let's see if Las Vegas is up to the task. I think this is a completely different caliber of defense that Las Vegas is facing, and they're going to look much better. I think our stats are much higher on the Las Vegas side than the Arizona side. I'm more interested in Arizona receiving options as run backs, but in terms of top stack probability, the only thing that's bad is that number for the Vegas Raiders. We've got Derek Carr way ahead of salary-based expectations. We got Josh Jacobs ahead of salary-based expectations, and the same thing for the receiving core. I don't think Devontae Adams' price is bad at 8,600. Certainly in the you can play him territory, and same with Renfrow. Waller's the only one we're at 5,600 where we might have some better value options, but if you're stacking him up, no problem at all.
I like Waller as well, though. I'm with you. I love Devontae Adams. I think Renfro's a great play, and we're still pulling. What do we still have him at single-digit ownership right now?
Adams, yeah.
No,
Adams, we have
Renfrow.
22. Renfrow at 10%. So
okay, so he came up a little bit since the last update, but still not that high. And then Waller, tight end position stinks week to week, but 8.7% really isn't that bad. I don't know. I'm looking at this, and I think all of them are viable. All of them, and double stacks. You could, if you wanted to just skinny stack Carr and Adams, it's hard to go wrong with that. But I think double stacks in this game are more than viable, because the truth is this is now a more concentrated offense than the Chiefs offense was. You know, Patrick Mahomes can target Mecole Hardman. He can go to MVS, Juju Smith-Schuster. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire catch 2 touchdowns. Not to mention Jerick McKinnon ran more routes and had more targets than him. Obviously, Travis Kelce, Sky Moore saw a deep target. Like, all of these guys, there's so many. With the Raiders, I think you're going to see it pretty concentrated around 3 players. And it's not like you go into this matchup and say, well, yeah, what about, you know, how much work are the pass catchers from Las Vegas going to get? I don't think, you know, as far as Josh Jacobs go, you're not too worried about that. Amir Abdullah had 1 target, and he was supposed to be, you know, the pass catching back. Brandon Bolden had 2. They didn't really target the running backs that much either.
So I agree with you entirely. The surprising projection compared to salary-based expectations would be Josh Jacobs. And I think it's as simple as you want running backs who have a large amount of a team's volume in a shootout environment. Don't think about it as Josh Jacobs. Don't think about it as Josh McDaniels running back, because you know all the history about a running back by committee. So far, this team has shown that they're willing to use Jacobs at a pretty high rate, and you're getting direct leverage off of people in large field GPPs who are going with these double stacks. I agree with you that I think that I'm playing that first and foremost that way, a double stack with Las Vegas and then running it back with Arizona. But Josh Jacobs is absolutely a value based on where we have the projections. If Rondale Moore plays, we think he'll be under-owned. I mean, his price is fine at 4,100, but if he doesn't play, we'll have to consider Greg Dortch again. Unfortunately, we'll probably have to consider the corpse of AJ Green in large field GPPs, and I think Marquise Brown will have a better game than he did in week 1.
He needs to, I'll tell you that much. He needs to. Last week, Renfrow, Waller, and Adams combined for 80% of Carr's targets.
Yeah, that'll work. Good. I mean, that's rational.
Yeah. And obviously, 46% of them were Devontae Adams, but he's also way more expensive than those guys. So, you know, just to give you guys an idea of what the offensive concentration looked like in week 1. Yeah, Waller and Renfrow only had 6 targets each, but I don't anticipate Adams having a 46% target share all season long either. And I think you're going to get games as well where Derek Carr certainly throws more than 34 times. And another big thing about this, and honestly, I can echo everything you said with Arizona. I don't need to talk much about them, but the other thing with Las Vegas is last week you were going up against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Now Chandler Jones is gone. The Cardinals pass rush is going to be far inferior to what it was last year. I think Carr is going to have time in the pocket.
I think that's fair. They were actually pretty good in that schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed stat. They were top 10 in the NFL to opposing offenses last year. I think it's clear that they're sliding towards the league average, if not below league average. Again, with a one game sample against Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to tell how far they've slid, but the shootout potential's here. Bottom line, you know how to play GPPs in these pass-heavy game scripts. And while Kyler Murray is the wide receiver 5 in terms of projection and quarterback 1 in terms of salary rank, it doesn't mean you can't play him in GPPs. The rushing upside is there, and you're talking about a player who has 30-point potential and less than 7% expected ownership.
Matt Corsetti, thank you. He's using the free super chat for an 11-month member. Best construction for early afternoon only contest. I couldn't tell you, man. If you want to come back and ask us later in the week, I'd be happy to do that. I haven't looked at early only or afternoon contests yet.
I can't tell you anything from like a specific like salary-based expectation standpoint for that specific slate because I just don't have the information up right here. But games I am targeting, obviously that Washington-Detroit game is the highest total on the early slate. And I still think Miami and Baltimore could have more offense than people realize. And so I like going for some interesting one-off pieces in that game environment, more so than New Orleans and Tampa Bay. We'll get there, though.
Last question, James Conner.
Wow, we have him well below salary-based expectations. We do not like him over at the Stokastic projections team. I'm not sure if we're really factoring in the upside he has in positive game environments, but assuming this is more of a shootout, like we're kind of saying, I don't think he looks very good. I think he's the running back 8 in salary rank. That's really, really high for a player who has a large range of outcomes.
Yeah. I have him in a bunch of Rainmaker contests this week, but there's no salary there. And at this price point, I agree. It's tough to get to. Let's talk about Washington and Detroit, though. I mentioned to you right before we started the show. I'm excited to see what this Detroit offense can do in week 2. Week 1, 35 points against what should have been a retooled defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, I'm on Russ St. Brown, despite that secondary for the Eagles, and John Gannon really needs to fix some shit. There's no denying that. He does, 100%, yeah. Or he should be gone. Him and Nathaniel Hackett should be sent packing. Different teams, of course, but 2 coaches that didn't make the greatest early impression. But the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown was targeted 12 times. DeAndre Swift was massively efficient. The biggest concern there, and I'll start with the home team here because I'm excited to talk about him. The biggest concern here is not that DeAndre Swift missed practice. He said he's going to be good to go. I'll take his word for it. And he had a coach, we were talking about this too, a coach in the offseason that said, you know, DeAndre Swift has to learn the difference between hurt and injured, meaning, hey, you're going to get banged up. You're going to get a little hurt during these games over the course of a season. You got to learn to play through it. So my assumption is he'll definitely be out there. The biggest concern I have, though, if we're just breaking this team down on every level, is the fact that what if I told you, Matt, that in week...
Sorry,
yeah.
the 30 for 30 music started.
You're good. What if I told you that in week 1, the leader among all players in red zone attempts and in attempts inside the 10-yard line was Jamal Williams, who scored twice on those? Dan Campbell loves him.
Yeah, I mean, if that was, I think I said this on another show, there was one major signal from Hard Knocks, which is that Jamal Williams, as long as he performs like a league average running back, he will get run on this team.
Yep.
Because they really like his emotional presence, whatever that means for the team as a whole. Maybe you can't quantify it, but you can certainly quantify goal line carries. And so DeAndre Swift, as good as he looked, still has a large range of outcomes. Here's what I really like. Like is a relative term for if you're a Detroit Lions fan, but if you're a fantasy points fan, the Detroit Lions were 29th in points allowed per play to the Eagles last week. They started 8th on offense in Football Outsiders DVOA. So if they're going to have a high-powered offense relative to the league and a low-powered defense relative to the league, we're going to be chasing them all year long for shootouts because Washington also proved that they could score pretty well against a pretty bad defense in Jacksonville last week. Maybe they can do it again.
I got to tell you that if you go back and watch Carson Wentz and, you know, far be it for me to say I'm impressed with Carson Wentz.
That's tough.
Listen, made a couple bad throws. He's always going to. He got picked off twice. Carson Wentz dropped dimes in that game, dude. Dimes. There was, you talk about the Jaguars defense, and I agree. You know, generally speaking, I don't think they're going to be all that good. The coverage on some of these passes that were caught for touchdowns was really, really tight coverage. I'm talking tight coverage. So if Carson Wentz continues to make those throws, this could be a shootout. And then you're getting Curtis Samuel, who had a 30% target share last week, as someone that is essentially very low owned. What was his target share last week? I'm pretty sure it was close to 30%. I could be 27%. He had 11 targets. Terry McLaurin is another guy that ownership is probably going to be pretty low on him. Right now it's at 3%. Curtis Samuel is at 6%. These guys are not getting any ownership whatsoever. Dotson, I'm a little less intrigued by. I think, the 2 touchdowns might have been a bit of an outlier there. But my point remains that on both sides of this game, there's multiple ways you can go. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of them. And if you're getting super low ownership and you're running a game stack here, Washington does have low priced guys and low owned guys. If Wentz can come out and actually piece together a similar game to what we saw in week 1, he was very good.
Yeah, I completely agree. We still saw Terry McLaurin get a large amount of air yards. So I'm hoping that we can still see him bounce back this season. I believe he led the team. Yeah, 75 air yards led the team last week. But Curtis Samuel is clearly going to be a weapon used close to the line of scrimmage, which means the touches are going to be there, especially if you're in a full PPR situation like a DraftKings platform is. At 6.4% ownership right now, 4,600. He's not point chasing at all. Terry McLaurin is in the tough to play category for me, but you're talking about a good tournament option, someone in a very high total game on the slate who's expected at under 4% ownership with raw talent like Terry McLaurin and who had the most air yards on his team. If you look at weighted opportunity, McLaurin is the one who still had the most, tied for the most on his team.
No doubt. Yeah. And I like that. Hemi, what's up, dude? One of our members here says, boys, atoning for my sins, smash the like button. Appreciate y'all a ton. Thanks, man. Yeah. You got to atone for your sins if you hadn't hit the thumbs up yet. We're all sinners around here, but we can wash those clean with one click of a button. 2, if you want to subscribe. I worry though. And Jordan Burkhardt, what's up, dude? Said, I think those 2 Jamal touchdowns came after long Swift runs, though, so it may have been more of a Swift getting a breather. It's definitely possible, but it still doesn't explain away the 5 carries inside the 10 for Jamal Williams, right? Like DeAndre Swift had 1. So even if you were to take them away, it looks to me like Williams is probably still – this isn't to say Swift doesn't get any of them. It looks like Jamal Williams, at least in week 1, was still the goal line back. So yeah,
just to add on to what you're saying here, if you compare it, I'm not a big watch the game guy, obviously, but if you compare it from a game flow standpoint if you compare Jamal Williams goal line carries to say Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, in Denver, it looked like indifference at the goal line from the coaching staff. In Detroit, it looked purposeful.
I agree. Yeah. It sure seemed that way to me. And it's not like we haven't seen that in the past. That's so if you're actually looking at a historical data from a Dan Campbell coach team, and we don't have a ton of it, understandably so, right? But if you look at that from last year, you had a lot of injuries. I think Jamal Williams was out for a while as well, right? And Swift was also out. Jamal Williams had 10 carries inside the 10. Swift had 11. Swift had 4 goal line carries. Jamal Williams had, Jamal Williams had 5. So I mean, maybe it's a split, maybe it's Jamal Williams, but all I'm saying is, regardless, even if it's a split, just prepare if you're playing DeAndre Swift to get pissed off. Right? Am I wrong though? Like, it doesn't mean Swift's a bad play, and it
doesn't change his ceiling, right? That's the caveat.
And he can break him from anywhere on the field. But I mean, look, let's be honest. If Derrick Henry rips off a big run or Jonathan Taylor rips off a big run, they're still in there for those goal line carries. That's all I'm saying.
Just a little different, just a little bit more downside there. Bottom line is he's in a good spot against a Washington defense that's not scaring anyone, that I believe has even more injuries up front. They're banged up once again on the defensive front.
Did you see what the total opened up in this game at?
It's like 48.5.
It opened at 44.5, and it's at 48.5 now.
Whoa. Okay.
I think it makes sense I'm being serious. I'm not being. I'm not joking about. I don't remember seeing the Lions with a 25-point implied total in recent memory. I really don't.
If Goff is out there, like if you're playing a super flex league, I think Goff is one of those high floor, 18 points a game. I know we're talking DFS. I digress. I was on the fantasy football channel an hour ago. You'll have to forgive me.
I like him instead. I like this game though in DFS, man. I think I could make a pretty good argument for stacking either side of this game. It has the second highest total on the slate. So I'm not saying anything crazy. Neither are you. Detroit has okay. Our top stack tool doesn't like Detroit. And I get that, especially because a lot of it is what we've seen baked in from previous seasons with Jared Goff. But I don't know, man. Hawkinson is not a bad pass catcher at all. Amon-Ra St. Brown is good. DJ Shark, even if you're looking for a cheaper option. And on the other side, I just think there's a lot of ways to make the Washington one work. So I'm going a little bit against the top stack tool here. I get why it's not high on them, but I do at least want pieces of this game. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't think that wide receiver 10, 6,500 salary base expectation is too high. I think TJ Hawkinson's a really interesting stacking option as well. At just 4,700, you can definitely make that work. And then DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds, you're talking about long shot, large field GPP options. But in this game environment, they should be, again, large field player pool considerations.
No doubt. Also, Jared Goff is cheap as shit.
Yeah, he really is.
You know? So him and Wentz are both cheap.
Yeah.
Atlanta at the LA Rams. Oh, and by the way, we're talking about how rude of me. We're talking about the top stack tool. We're talking about ownership projections and our player projections. We have the lineup generator. I would be remiss to not let you know that if you are a new user and haven't signed up at Stokastic yet, you get your first 3 days entirely free of Stokastic Plus NFL Platinum. Everything that we have for NFL for the showdown slate, the top single game plays tool, which gives you, it gives you the top play probability, optimal lineup probability, leverage scores, ownership projections, all of that, all of our articles, all of our tools, the new lineup generator, and so much more that I don't even have time to get into, but it's free. So, maybe you've been burnt by other sites in the past. It happens. Ain't going to happen with us, but you don't have to worry about that because the first 3 days are free. If you want to come check it out, completely free without any strings attached, use the link in the description or the one that Mike put into chat and follow along these tools with us. It makes it so much easier to research games and build lineups. And like I said, with the lineup generator or the lineup builder or the player compare tools, help you single lineup builders a lot, your hand builders a whole lot. All right. Atlanta's getting 10.5 against the Rams. Now, this game actually opened up with the Rams as 13.5-point favorites, Matt. So swings to 10.5 here. The LA Rams, you told me before we started that you could see this game going over. Sorry, with the Atlanta Falcons, looked pretty good last week. Cordero Patterson was solid. You have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, a lot of young talent out there. Can they get it done in any capacity from a DFS sense against this Rams defense?
What Rams defense? I mean, obviously, you're talking about.
It's just so hard for me to look at Josh Allen and Diggs and Gabriel Davis and be like, yeah, Rams defense isn't good anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. So we're giving the Rams more benefit of the doubt than, say, the Arizona Cardinals when we were talking about Patrick Mahomes picking them apart last week.
Well, because I think personnel-wise, I just think the Rams have a lot better actual proven players. That's why.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree, but they did look like they were a team that was a little more lost than we expected them to be defensively last week. Could they correct things? Absolutely. Against an Atlanta team with extremely low expectations. I would say even though they lost last week, Atlanta, they exceeded expectations. They found new ways to lose. If you're an Atlanta fan of any kind, you know this type of heartbreak is very, very common. But ultimately, I think Atlanta implied for 17.75 points last I checked in Vegas. That is a number I think they can exceed offensively. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Cordero Patterson honestly impressed me the most. This is showing you what a rushing quarterback does for rushing lanes for your running back. I don't think Cordero Patterson magically got way better this offseason. Certainly looks healthy, but I think it's because the threat of Mariota rushing opens things up for the running game by the running backs. Cordero Patterson is running back 10 in our projections on the main slate. Absolutely, you can play him. Kyle Pitts, we have him tight end 2. Salary-based expectations have him at tight end 4. And even Drake London, we have him right with his salary-based expectations at 5,200. This is a team that I think, especially if they're going to be pushed because LA is scoring points, very, very interesting in tournaments.
I like that. And, someone else said, Brandon Wagner said, even Mariota against the Rams defense or Rams looks good to me. Probably going to be a dusting. But probably be dusting those buy-ins off. But I think it looks kind of good. Well, you said dusting. I thought you were going to say the Rams just smoke them and then Mariota gets garbage time as well. Who knows? It's possible. But we had Chronic Smith. We could talk about the Rams here. Said the Rams played a preseason game last week. Now, it's funny because on one hand, you might be being facetious. But on the other hand, it is true. Sean McVay plays none of his guys in the preseason whatsoever. Josh Allen and company did get some preseason run. Could it make a difference? I think it's possible. I don't think it's shocking to see that some of these crazy week 1 scores when a lot of these teams don't play any of their starters in the preseason anymore. Again, it's anecdotal because it's kind of a new trend. I don't really know, but yeah, they have a week to get it fixed. What I do know is that Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp could not see each other for 5 years, come back, reunite without any practice, and Matthew Stafford will still target him at a 50% target share clip.
Yeah, it looked like the first read on every single play was Cooper Kupp. The second read was Tyler Higbee. The third was just tuck it and take the sack.
It was Cooper Kupp again.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp again. Exactly.
He's always open though, Matt.
I don't know how you don't throw to this guy right now. Look, if you have any season-long or best ball shares of Cooper Kupp, you're feeling good about his odds of being the number 1 wide receiver in football once again. Justin Jefferson may have something to say by the end of the year, but ultimately, this guy's matchup proof. And speaking of matchup, this is a pretty darn good one. In schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed, that's fantasy points allowed versus their opponent's average for the year last year. The Atlanta Falcons were up there with the New York Jets as the worst defense for fantasy in the NFL. Easiest for opposing offenses. The same defensive metrics that go into that stat are the reasons why we're seeing LA with over 28 implied points in Vegas. You're going to have that many points. You're going to have a ton of fantasy points. Cooper Kupp is the first place to look. 9,900. It's starting to get to that territory of if you fade him, you can do different things with your lineup than the rest of the field, but fade him at your own risk. He's still getting 15% ownership, and it's probably too low.
I don't know how much Cooper Kupp I'm going to get to this week.
I get it. From a tournament standpoint, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get everything you're saying in the sense that it's Cooper Kupp and it's just every single week. Allen Robinson was an afterthought, just as Robert Woods was before he tore his ACL at the middle of the season. I think one of the things though so Devontae Adams is getting more ownership than Cooper Kupp. I think he should. Good matchup. And not only a good matchup, but he's $1,300 cheaper. That $1,300 can go a long way. But as Ben and I talked about this on the First Look show, and you and I are going to go through a lot of these players, there's so much mid-range talent at running back and wide receiver this week that, let's just say you didn't want to go Cooper Kupp. You don't have to, because he could easily go for 30 and then other guys could do the same thing or more. Last week, the Millie Maker winner, Jonathan Taylor, dropped 30 and he was, I think, 9,100. Jonathan Taylor wasn't in the Millie Maker winning lineup. It was Saquon Barkley, right? It was DeAndre Swift. It was Antonio Gibson. Go check those prices out from week 1. There's going to be more of that. Pricing is adjusted a little bit, and I think it looks sharper than it was in week 1. But there's still a lot of very reasonably priced guys in those mid-range that can open things up a lot.
I totally agree when looking at the slate from a macro perspective. Cooper Kupp really starts at 9,900. Cooper Kupp starts to really hurt you at 30 plus points. He needs a 30-point game if you're fading him. And then if you are fading him, it's going to start to hurt you. If he gets anything under 30, which is honestly a high probability, he can have a good game but have under 30 fantasy points, he was probably good to fade at his salary-based expectations. That's all this means. He's super safe. He's playing a terrible defense, maybe one that's a little bit improved, but only a little bit improved. If you want to skinny stack him too, I think Darrell Henderson looks like a really strong value at just 5,700 on DraftKings, the running back 19 in salary rank. We've got him inside the top 10 in our Stokastic projections.
Anybody else you want to talk about for the Rams?
Absolutely. Allen Robinson is still a player in DFS that I'm taking chances on, and I'm panicking everywhere if he has another game like last Thursday.
The guy I think I would be panicking on personally for DFS reasons, Darrell Henderson right now is getting the 5th highest ownership on the slate. I hate that.
Yeah, that's just convenience, isn't it? I guess people are seeing the Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson situation very, very black and white, which, you know, it honestly might be. Akers is getting less than 1% ownership expectation now.
I talked to Neil Orfield on the First Look ownership show yesterday. Neil, phenomenal DFS player, and has made a lot of money being different than everyone. You look at all of the best players out there. Most of them are their strongest asset, their biggest strength is being able to find those leverage spots that other people aren't getting to. And when I asked him about Cam Akers, because no better person to pick their brain on that, he's like, yeah, if Akers is going to be sub 1% and Darrell Henderson's pulling top 5 ownership, top 3 at his position, he's like in large field tournaments. Of course I would want some Cam Akers. And I think that's right. I mean, it's very possible that this either becomes a timeshare in week 2, or that Darrell Henderson still gets all the work, or that Cam Akers sees the majority of touches. I don't think any of them is clear cut after 1 week when they looked horrible offensively to begin with.
100%. Again, we're in agreement. Sometimes it's fun to argue, but I think in this situation, we got to talk about the L word, leverage, because we certainly use it over at Stokastic.com. We've got the boom bust tool that helps you compare the optimal lineup percentage versus the expected ownership for every player, and we call that number leverage. But the truth is, leverage is much more specific than that. You can get leverage off of specific players, specific popular groupings. And so Darrell Henderson, extremely popular. Cooper Kupp, by nature of his high projection, even with the high salary, extremely popular. So if you play Cam Akers in a large field tournament and he succeeds, he's also likely taking away from 2 popular players. That is leverage, even if his leverage score on the boom bust tool is so-so.
Absolutely. Hey, Clownin, welcome to Team Stokastic, brother. Glad to have you here. All right, let's keep it going then. Man, these are some good games to start. Fun slate. Very fun slate.
Agreed.
Colts and Jags. And Colts, by the way, laying for 45.5 point total here. Can we talk about how Jonathan Taylor is in a very similar bucket this week to Cooper Kupp, both of them being 9,900. Jonathan Taylor being an absolute stud in a very good matchup as 4-point road favorites. There's nothing on paper or in a vacuum that you could say poorly about Jonathan Taylor. Excuse me. Outside of the fact that Barkley's 7,300. So far after week 1, you're 100% right. You've been banging the drum on him all offseason, Matt. Joe Mixon is against Dallas. You have, I'll save them for later, but there are a lot of guys at both positions. Again, if you're paying 9,900 for Jonathan Taylor, you're not doing anything wrong at all, but you're going to have to make big sacrifices elsewhere.
Well said again. I mean, look, Jacksonville wasn't as bad defensively as you might have thought by the end of the season. But we're still talking 25th out of 32 teams in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses last year. This is certainly a plus matchup, a situation where we would expect Jonathan Taylor to be in plus game scripts. But we've talked about the slate from a macro perspective a lot today. This is a really fun puzzle because Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp, both here, both with high expectations and both with a 9,900 salary, kind of forcing the field into a one or the other situation on DraftKings specifically. Obviously, Taylor's a good play. We can kind of take the guesswork out of it there. It's whether you want to spend or can spend the salary. Michael Pittman's clearly going to be involved. He looked good. Matt Ryan did not look good. -6 fantasy points below expectation for Matt Ryan in week 1. I would say him and the Colts performance was the most egregious underperformance of week 1. They have no business tying with the Houston Texans. And yet I'm probably going right back to the well when they're playing the Jaguars and expecting them to have a bounce back week.
Yeah, man. We talked about that Texans team coming in at home, new head coach. Things might look a little different, but let's not look past the fact that the Texans, despite overtime, still allowed 517 yards. Okay. So, yeah, they had a real bend, don't break style of play. And they were up 20-3 at one point. Should have won that game. But when it comes to Taylor and when it comes to Pittman, just go back. They both put up huge games. And I think that'll be the case today, this week too. What was shocking to me, Matt, and maybe you can explain to me why what I'm not seeing here. Okay, it did come up. It was at like 6% yesterday. But Pittman is still in the single digits. I understand that he's not 5,500 like he was last week, which was, I think, probably the easiest play on the slate, probably along with Barkley, right? Around there. I still think it's 6,700 against the Jags, where Matt Ryan, if Matt Ryan clearly only wants to throw the ball to Michael Pittman, and he's basically Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams light in terms of target share and abilities. I still love him this week.
Yeah, and we got Alec Pierce is in the concussion protocol now, iffy to play. Ashton Doolin is a large field consideration. We've got him well ahead of salary-based expectations at 3,200, but talk about a clear number one option in the receiving game. The Indianapolis Colts need Michael Pittman to succeed for their passing game to succeed. He's the player I'm targeting first and foremost on this offense after Jonathan Taylor. I'm actually surprised how low the Colts are on the top stacks tool. I think they're bottom 10 on this very large 12-game slate. But I still kind of think that against the Jaguars, with the way we saw Wentz play last week, Matt Ryan and Michael Pittman is a pretty safe play with very low expected ownership.
He had a 26% target share, which across an overtime game where Matt Ryan throws 50 times is very nice. He ran routes on 98% of dropbacks. He is the guy through and through. If you're not in on Pittman yet, I suggest doing it now. Because, and I'm not saying you have to play him. I'm saying I suggest you're in on Pittman in that he's going to be very good. And he's going to be a guy that every single week we're talking about in some form. So that's really it for me, though. I'll be honest, man. This is one of those teams where I just don't have much interest in the rest of them. Maybe large field like double stacks, but Jonathan Taylor's so involved that I love Pittman. And if you want to pay for Taylor, Taylor's fine too. But I don't have a ton outside of that. I don't have anything really outside of that.
Naheem Hines is in you can play him territory at 5,300 if you want to get different. But again, how many times have you played the slate over and over and over again, 100, 1,000 times, does he get you to 25, 30 fantasy points? He's got to fall in the end zone twice. Just to quantify the opportunity value with Matt Ryan and Michael Pittman, 52 expected fantasy points. That's opportunity value. That's just targets area. It's between the two of them. If you combine them, if we're getting 52 fantasy points from those two in a small stack and the ownership is incredibly low, that's really interesting to me against the bad Jacksonville defense.
St. Stephen 68. Sorry, I'm late. I was busy putting a wild boar over the fire to feed me for the whole show. We found the winner.
There it is.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. Better late than never, man. Hey, guys, hit that thumbs up. Steven, if you're walking in the door, you got that boar, eating some boar meat right now. Yeah, walk in. Yeah. Hit that thumbs up as well and subscribe. Appreciate you. All right. Should we talk about Jacksonville too here with for sure. Lawrence looking okay last week? Wentz really put them in a position to win with 2 interceptions and they still surrendered 2 touchdown lead towards the end, a 2-score lead. Christian Kirk, though, very heavily involved, but this backfield, ETN was efficient, but very little usage.
I'm nervous about ETN. Take the first round draft capital out of it. Can you play a Jacksonville Jaguars running back who's getting 8 touches a game?
Nope. I certainly wouldn't
play them in DFS. Like it's simple as that. It would be a million maker pick only. So the fact that he was really good in college, he was a first round pick by Urban Meyer and company, is kind of changing the overall perception, but the fundamental analysis is not good for Travis Etienne. And if you then look at the coach speak, I think a reporter asked Doug Peterson, what was the thing you learned most out of your week one performance? And he said something along the lines of how much this team needs James Robinson. That doesn't sound great if you're trying to lean on Travis Etienne right now. Maybe long term, if you're playing something like Dynasty or holding on to Rainmakers cards or something like that, maybe it's a little bit different equation. But James Robinson is the running back I'm playing. If they're both 5,600 and there's not even much more expected ownership with Robinson, 3.1% versus 1.5 right now. Do you have the guts to play Jacksonville in your stacks? Because right now they're kind of top 8, top 9 in our top stacks tool in terms of overall value. Lawrence's salary at 5,300 is just about right. Both Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, in terms of opportunity value, expected fantasy points. Can you believe Zay Jones was top 10 in the NFL among all wide receivers in expected fantasy points last week? Not Christian Kirk.
What?
Not Christian Kirk.
Christian
Zay Jones.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. That's insane.
1 week sample, obviously.
I think this team can score this week. I just really don't know if I want to try and figure out where the points are going to come from is the problem. I mean, I'm talking about from a stacking standpoint, right? I think you've got Christian Kirk, who's very viable. I'm still not entirely sold on Trevor Lawrence. James Robinson and Travis Etienne. I don't know. I don't really want to look towards the backfield at 5,600 apiece. I agree with you that I'd rather go with Robinson. He's scored twice last week, one of them on a receiving touchdown. It does kind of make sense, but I think we look through some of these other games, we might find some great plays here on top of that. Who are your favorite plays from this Jags team, if we had to just quickly name them?
Well, first and foremost, talk about Trevor Lawrence. I love the fact that he threw 42 times in a loss. Please keep throwing 40 times just from a fantasy perspective. And we need reps for Trevor Lawrence as well. Again, I think I'm going to go with Zay Jones at 4,300 as a sneaky upside play, just 4% ownership and 7th, I just checked, among wide receivers and expected fantasy points in week one.
All right, let's keep this one moving then. Someone asked about, where is it? Where was that? Cody, what's the promo code for Prize Picks? Mike, can you throw that link in the chat? It's in the description as well, as a matter of fact. Yeah, right there. If you just expand the description, they're the sponsor of this show. It's an awesome format. You guys already know this. You know, unlike traditional parlays, there's no juice on either side of these. You're just taking props, putting them into a lineup. You can do 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you hit 5, you 10x your entry. If you hit 4, like I said, unlike a traditional parlay, you still 2x your money, your entry. If you hit 3, you still get money back. And you can mix sports up. You want to go, all right, MMA. I was talking to Gajeski earlier. It's like Gajeski knows college football, MMA, and NFL. If he's going in there, you could do 3 NFL, 1 college football, 1 UFC lineup, put them all into the same lineup, mix them up with whatever you're confident in. So it just expands your ability to take all of the best props and use our Prize Picks tool over at Stokastic, use our player props tool, use OddsShopper. All of them are free and just get a considerable edge. That's what makes it a lot of fun. The fact too, that you get $100 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using the link in the description or in the chat, that helps too. Use that link. Don't give up free money. $100 first match deposit bonus over at prizepicks.com, or you can download it in the App Store, or you can go to the Google Play Store. Check it out. Prize Picks, baby, sponsor of the Matchup Strategy Show. All right, Houston Texans at the Denver Broncos. Here's my quick take on this one. I got the Broncos at 9.5, right? Get under that key number. Okay. So I think they smoke Houston this week.
I completely think that's in the range of outcomes. I'm actually starting to get worried that Russ is a little bit of a head case. Like it's like a mind over matter in a bad way right now, where there's some reason he's not throwing deep. He's not force feeding Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton the ball, because those two looked absolutely electric with the ball in their hands. They just simply didn't get the ball enough. The offensive scheme, especially the passing game, looked super conservative. Obviously, you saw a lot of running back and tight end targets. but you're playing Houston. You're in a get right situation for sure. You're at home. You got 27.5 expected implied points from Vegas. Show us something, Russell Wilson. Go ahead and cook here. He's in the you can play him range in terms of projection versus salary-based expectations. The player we really like on this squad, unsurprisingly, with all that target share, is Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I'm way lower on Javonte Williams, personally.
I totally get it. He's 6,500, fundamentally underpriced if he's going to be used the way he was last week.
All right, so let me tell you why and get your take on this, right? So my concern is not really Nathaniel Hackett's a schmuck, but what are you going to do? Did you hear Ben say that he would fire him after game one and he was dead serious?
I mean, it was an egregious call.
He said he was going to bar of soap, like in the bag, Full Metal Jacket him if he ran the team. Like Private Pile.
That escalated quickly. Yeah, I know the exact scene you're talking about.
So, yeah, I'm really not I don't think that movie holds up, but that's for another time. All right. Javonte Williams got the large majority of his production in the passing game, right? They played from behind all game. Mm-hmm. He had a 29% target share on a team that, as you astutely pointed out, has Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton too. Probably use a little bit more going forward, especially against the Houston team. I don't see why, especially because I see this game going a certain way. So this is just obviously subjective take. I see this going a certain way. I think Denver can come in at home and run the score up, right? I might even bet the alt line on this. But the problem I have is, let's say Javonte Williams gets 4 or 5 targets and not 12. 4 or 5 seems very much in the range of, not even in range of outcomes, seems likely to me. Way more than 12 or 10. And what if Nathaniel Hackett continues to split the backfield work in the run game?
I think that's a clear reason to fade this player. One of the things that happens is if you have enough opportunity value and you're just good at football, like the advanced metrics seem to indicate about Javonte Williams, it usually leads to 2 things. 1, efficiency on your touches, and 2, more opportunity and more opportunity value. But you are reading this exactly right. Melvin Gordon, again, in that expected fantasy points metric, that opportunity value metric that just combines targets, air yards, where they happened on the field. Melvin Gordon was top 15 in the NFL among all running backs last week. He didn't disappear.
Crazy.
They just used running backs, in my opinion, in our opinion, way too much. The expected fantasy points need to move away from Williams and Gordon and over to Jeudy and Sutton for this team to really take off, especially if they're going to have these high implied totals. I'm not saying that the tight ends are bad players, but no more targets to Andrew Beck. Get the ball downfield to Jeudy and Sutton, and Hamler as well. I mean, he's wide receiver 55, 3,900, and he's got less than 1% ownership with 1 week of just a no-show.
Where's Sutton and Judy's ownership at?
Judy's at under 10%.
Sutton's at 7.7.
And they're in very playable salary ranges. We have them ahead of salary-based expectations, both of them. Take a chance.
I love those price points, man. Are you kidding me? 10-point favorites? I love that price point on both.
Number 4 in our top stack rating as well.
Go. And with that ownership and looking at Javonte Williams, doubling Sutton's ownership, there's a lot of, all I'm saying is there's a lot of ways Javonte Williams could have a bad game. That's all. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he will. I think he's super talented. I mean, some of the broken tackles that he had, his vision is very good. I like him. He's quick, but if his ownership continues to rise, I would probably have less of him and more of the pass catchers.
Yeah. Look, when we sim the DFS slate, he's in the optimal lineup, the very best lineup, 15% of the time. Yeah. Like 85% of the time he doesn't show up there.
Exactly.
And the floor is really low in a lot of those cases.
Absolutely. Anything else for Denver? If not, you want to talk Houston here?
Alberto still playable for me. Looked pretty good on his targets. Expected fantasy points, tight end 13, kind of where we expected him all summer long, even with all those other tight ends in the mix.
Talk to me about the Texans, man. It's a Rex Burkhead show. Are you kidding me? I couldn't have been further off on that one.
Yep. the opportunity value is there, as I say it again. I think you're good for 12 fantasy points, but do you need that in a GPP? Probably not. He's going to look good in a projection versus salary graph or something like that, but I don't think you need him for DFS purposes this week. The player I'd much rather take a chance on is Brandon Cooks at 6K.
Yeah.
He's still at 14% ownership, so I'm annoyed that the rest of the public are kind of seeing it the same way. But I definitely will take some shots there. And look, this is a team that played better than expected. They just have 17.5 implied points from Vegas this week. Could they score 20 to 24 instead? I think that's very much in the range of outcomes. If they're pushed offensively, like we just talked about with Denver, maybe they pass a little bit more. Maybe Nico Collins gets involved. They're not going to be high owned. I mean, Nico Collins at 2.5% ownership and Mills at 1%. So a decent large field option.
Yeah, Cooks is the one guy for me. I don't think you're not going to see a Pat Surtain shadow coverage. They move Cooks around. In week one, he basically lined up 33%, a third of the time, left side of the field, right end slot. So they have to move him around, right? Otherwise, you're screwed. They don't have anybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, they drafted him to move him around the field in the way that teams use star number ones.
Right. So with that in mind, I think Cooks, I'm with you. I think Cooks still has some real value in this spot, but I'm also with you in that, and you and I don't agree on everything, but I think we're seeing Houston the same way. Why would you really want to take a risk on a backfield for a team that's 10-point road dogs? Right? Doesn't make any sense. And quite frankly, outside of Brandon Cooks, you could tell me, yeah, well, you know what? Nico Collins could end up having a game, or, listen, you could throw whoever you want at me. I'll give you the same answer, whether you tell me it's Chris Moore or Nico Collins or any of these guys not named Brandon Cooks. And I'll tell you one thing, go look how much good value there is on wide receivers this week. That legitimately, some of them had 30% target share. Some had double-digit targets last week, and they're still getting 3-4% ownership at 4K. I'd rather with better quarterbacks. So, yeah, that's where I reside on that one, Matt.
100%. In a main slate, there, especially if you're chasing $1 million in a Millie Maker or something like that, almost no one is a full stay away player. But you also have to do a paring down of players when you have this many teams on the slate. And I think the Texans' secondary options and tertiary options are probably a safe bet.
And let me add one thing. Don't get caught up in the OJ Howard hype. He caught 2 touchdowns. He had 2 targets. That's not the worst part, though. OJ Howard in this game ran 6 routes, okay? He ran 6 routes in this game. Not good. He was on the field for 17% of snaps. Pharaoh Brown and Brevin Jordan played 66 and 60% respectively. OJ Howard for, basically 90% of this game was a non-factor. So the touchdowns look nice, Matt, but that is, if there's ever an outlier game, that is one of them.
100%. You're not chasing those points. It's cool that they might have a red zone option in Howard, but you can't trust that. Not on Houston with a team consistently with less than 20 implied points each week.
All right, we can start getting through some of these games a little bit quicker because the totals start to drop. Before we do, though, Stokastic call, I have to shout everybody out. We had so many big wins. And by big wins, I mean, we literally this week have 2 Stokastic members, avatar users with $1 million wins. We have 2 with $300,000 wins. We have 1 with $100,000 win. If you want to get involved, and hey, it can be the quarter arcade. It doesn't matter. All you have to do to get up here on the Hall of Fame, to get inducted, so to speak, is go to stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF, Hall of Fame, when you get it. Okay, you have to finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Otherwise, we'd go out of business. But not only do you get up here, you get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Not NFL, everything. Football, baseball, when basketball's back, say you're in the mix, MMA, PGA, everything that we have on the site, totally free when you rock that avatar and tweet us your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame. I'm going to rip through these, though. You got Samuel Hillman, $1 million. This guy is from 3 weeks ago. He won a qualifier to get in.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Congrats, dude. Not a field of 5,000 plus, but you better believe it's going up here. Then he said, can't wait to be back watching NBA every day with Luffy and Josh. Can't wait either, man. It's going to be fun. Then that's Stunner. This guy just wins all the time. $1 million Sunday NFL juggernaut. I told you, this is the most insane Hall of Fame I've ever done. The Colts, Steve Buzzard behind the scenes doing.
Oh, I know this guy. Look at him.
Also one of the sharpest guys out there, working on all of our tools all the time. 100K. And then how about this? Death Flower and Falstaff chopping this one. Monday Night Millionaire, 300K a piece. Average Mog, $10,000. Huge. Chop the main on Thursday and solo in the $1. And then our boy EMAC coming in hot with a nice $1,600 win.
Hey, EMAC. Nice.
What do you place out of 1.2 million? Pretty sweet. But yeah, you could enter the nickel. It doesn't matter. As long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you still get the free month, $100 plus value, and you'll get up here. So welcome to everyone. You've now been inducted. Welcome back if you've been here before. Let's keep this one moving. I get excited talking about that, Matt.
I mean, $2 million winners and $100,000 winner. That's chump change for this week's Hall of Fame. Sorry, man, you're third billing.
There was between the two 300s, there was 20, 26, 27. There's like $27,000, $1,200. 2.7 million. Sorry, 2.7 million in wins on that Hall of Fame wall. I got to get up there. Shit.
You think the projections and the premium tools are doing okay this year? I think we
so.
Neglected the pros at all while helping the hand builders as well. I think we got you covered over at Stokastic.com.
And your first 3 days are free. Links in the description. All right, Miami, Baltimore. This game is weird to me, man. And I'm going to let you run with it a little bit because I don't have a great feel outside of the fact that I always will stack Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. I think that's arguably the best skinny stack that you can find any week. Lamar Jackson, how about this? You'll like this. Lamar Jackson led the league in deep attempts in week 1 with 8. And 3 touchdown passes came on deep balls. So yeah, I have a little bit of interest if he's going to be heaving the ball downfield, whether it's Duvernay or whoever. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, eventually these guys are going to have a huge game.
100%.
Right. But with, and listen, I want you to take over and break this game down on both sides. But with Kyle Fuller out now, right? That's a big injury in the secondary. I don't think Marcus Peters is going to be
Peters
back.
Is hurt. He may not play either.
May not play. Ronnie Stanley's still in doubt. Jawan James, who was his backup, just ruptured his Achilles. They do have some question marks in Baltimore from an injury standpoint for sure. So what are you seeing from a DFS standpoint on both sides of this? Like I said, for me, I like the skinny stacks. I think Lamar could run for a bunch and hopefully hook up with Andrews on 2 touchdowns like he did with Duvernay last week.
Man, I just think the 35 fantasy point game for Lamar Jackson is coming soon. Coming real soon. And we got him QB1 in our projections. He's obviously QB2 in salary, not cheap, but the ownership is under 7%. Absolutely fine there. Andrews is the popular one. He is in the optimal lineup just 2.2% of the time, but he's got a 14% projected ownership. So I'm actually playing him only in skinny stack situations where I'm playing the stack in the game environment more than Andrews as a one-off. Bateman and Duvernay are great GPP options, especially if Lamar Jackson is going to keep throwing deep. And just think about it from a logical standpoint. Lamar Jackson is scrambling and or doing design rushes. They probably have J.K. Dobbins back in the lineup this week as well. And then suddenly they catch the linebackers and the safeties flat-footed. They're going over the top to Duvernay, to Bateman. Keep doing that. Maybe it won't be 8 times against a slightly more competent Miami defense, but this Baltimore offense is really solid. I'm not doing a double stack just because of the nature of the rushing upside.
I don't think you need to. I don't think you should, actually.
But you could definitely do skinny stack and a run back with Miami because I think you got some obvious playmakers in Edmonds and Hill, and then Waddle is a solid secondary option as well.
The skinny stack with a run back, I love because Tyreek Hill, man, there were some really bad throws to Tyreek Hill from Tua last week. The NFL memes on Instagram had a phenomenal one where it's like, it said like Tua with an absolute dart to Tyreek. And I was like, I got to look this up. And he just threw it right into the ground. But overall, Tua was fine. And Tyreek Hill I'll have to show it to you. It was really good. Tyreek had tied for the third highest target share in the week with 36.4%. Target shares can vary depending on where you're looking at them from, because certain sites like PFF will count targets or pass attempts differently. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Like they always
literally did these charts for a couple years.
PFF always has less than other sites. You know what I mean? So, but still 36% target share for Tyreek Hill. Ooh, baby. I mean, and honestly, it's Mark Andrews is the highest priced tight end, but he's not that expensive. He's not that expensive. Tyreek Hill 7,100. It's not. Look, if you're stacking this though, it's not going to be a particularly cheap stack because of Lamar Jackson, but it is doable. Is all I'm saying. It is doable.
Yep. Yeah, it certainly is. And Tyreek Hill, again, I know I bring up expected fantasy points over and over and over again, but the bottom line is not every target is created equal. We know this when we're watching a game.
Look at the screen, Matt. Hold on. Mike's got it up. Look at our screen.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I'm checking it out. Oh, boy.
Mike, are we going to get copyright striked and this taken down for that?
Oh, it was okay. A tweet. We'll see. Well, it was a good run. Tua is, I still think, a fine fantasy option. I still think Tyreek, again, expected fantasy points helps you out here because Tyreek was the wide receiver 8. He had 18 fantasy points. It actually performed below his opportunity-based expectation. I think he's one of the safest receivers on the slate at 7,100. Obviously, people are seeing it that way. 17% expected ownership. So he's the clear popular run back. You're going to have to be different in your lineup. Chase Edmonds is the one that's going to be heavily involved in this offense. And if you think this is going to be a shootout, the touches are going to be there for Edmonds. I think he's really interesting at running back 30 in salary ranking.
Okay. My goal is to not play Edmonds all season, but you already knew that.
He looked really involved. Like he almost looked like the second option overall in the offense before Waddle in this first game. Obviously they weren't really pushed
I know
by the Patriots, but
he was definitely involved. And you're right about that. I will say though, I was right about something too, that Raheem Mostert is going to be involved. Raheem Mostert had a 42% target share in this game, and he only had 5 carries, understandably so, 6 touches. But I do think there will be some games where Raheem Mostert, I'm not playing him, of course. I'm not saying he's viable. But Chase Edmonds is the clear, number 1 in this backfield. Raheem Mostert is the clear number 2. Like he is actually a backup number 2 back. It's not like just 1 carry a game and everything else goes to Edmonds.
I agree. I agree. If you're having a clear number 2 in the bathroom, go see a doctor. But Raheem Mostert is the clear number 2 in Miami. I agree.
But you would 100% send a picture to your friend.
You would 100% have to photograph that.
I might hire someone to come and photograph that. Like, I don't know if you ever watched South Park, but Stan's dad, where Randy is trying to break the record for the biggest shit of all time.
Oh gosh, and one of my favorite memes ever, the swirling finish.
Yeah. And it turns out that Bono is actually the record holder because he was born a piece of shit. Good stuff. South Park has some of the greatest social commentary ever. All right, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Unless you want to hit on anything else, I think we broke that down pretty nicely, right?
Gesicki, I'm out on. I'd rather play Cedric Wilson in a large field. I can't play Gesicki right now.
Can't play him. Let's go to Tampa and New Orleans.
Yep.
I got a fun stat for you. How about this? So the betting video I do always, puts me in a position where I can find some fun stuff. It's over on the Odd Shopper channel if you want to check it out. And for real, guys, if you are going to bet tonight's game, Thursday Night Football, or any of these games for Sunday, and you're already signed up at FanDuel and DraftKings, use the BetMGM link because you'll get $200 for free. Just why wouldn't you? You're getting $200 to pay to use that link, sign up, put $10 into the site. That's it, $10. Put it on either team to win. That's it. Do it tonight. Chargers, Chiefs. If you win, you get your money and your $200. If you lose, you still get the $200. And I see it pretty simply and, in my opinion, correctly. if you go on, you get this $200 by just signing up, putting $10 in, and putting that $10 on either team to win, right? Guaranteed $200. If you lose, or you get that $200, you go on a terrible losing streak and you lose it all. You're down $10 at the end of the day. The floor here is losing $10, right? The ceiling is that you go on a massive heater and you just start winning left and right. And now you have a monster bankroll throughout the NFL season by starting with $10 and getting $200 for free. So if you're into betting,
can I add one thing too, Lockie? Yeah, make sure I won't be offended, guys. Go back and listen to the specifics on this bet, because these platforms are very, very specific about which bets you can do to take advantage of these promos. So make sure you get the specifics right. We'll help you out, but the offer is too good to pass up. That's why we keep talking about it. Just want to make sure everyone gets that part, those specifics of which bet to do right.
Yeah. So thank you. So Friday and MGM's doing some weird landing page thing for college football on Friday and Saturday. So if you're going to place, if you're watching this on Thursday and you're betting a team, because you got to bet either team to win, right? Bet a money line. So I'd bet like a short dog or something. You're going to bet Thursday or bet it on Sunday. But what I would do is I would bet the Sunday games on Thursday if you're watching on Thursday, because you're going to get a better line. You're going to get a better. But yeah, so Friday, Saturday, don't do it. But you can still sign up on Friday, Saturday, and just make the bet on Sunday or today on Thursday. Thank you. Anyway, check it out. Tampa Bay. Tom Brady has lost 9 games in the regular season with the Bucs. 4 of them have come against the Saints. They play him real well. And if you want to be like, yeah, but Sean Payton was the head coach, because we know Tom Brady has really struggled in this matchup. Yes, but guess who was the defensive coordinator for all those years? Dennis Allen, who is now the head coach. Instrumental defensively in slowing down Tom Brady. But it is Tom Brady. They do have an embarrassment of riches as far as skill players go. No Chris Godwin, but you still have Julio and Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette, who had 21 carries last game. Where the hell do you go with this team in week 2?
I'm going to keep betting on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, regardless of the defense they're playing against, especially if they're favored. I know it's the Saints. I know that team has given them trouble before, but I would rather be on Tom Brady and his offensive weapons when they're a little unpopular than when they're incredibly popular, if you're just talking about DFS from a game theory standpoint.
Mike, throw the link in chat. Did you throw the MGM link in chat?
Yeah, help them out if you can.
Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Tom Brady, in terms of salary-based expectations, we got him a little below in our median projection, but certainly not out of the you can play him range. Mike Evans, same thing. We know the whole story. He's probably going to get matched up against Lattimore because Godwin's out. It increases the attention he's going to receive, and you could fade him if you want. I'm not going to. Under 10% ownership, 6,800, projection right in line with salary-based expectation. Gage and Julio Jones are interesting GPP plays. We actually like Gage a little bit better. My gut kind of say Jones has a big game here, but this stack is always interesting to me when you got 24 implied points, and you never know. This game could turn into a shootout. Jameis and company clearly have some offensive potential as well this year.
And by the way, Matt, despite all those stats, first of all, I don't want to bet this game because, like, if I was going to bet a side, I would take Tampa because you need to win by a field goal. If you're betting New Orleans, you have to bet the money line here. Don't bet New Orleans at +2.5 so they lose by a field goal and you lost by the hook. Don't make that mistake. Take the money line at +120 if you're on the Saints side, right? If you're on the Bucs side, you can lay the points and win by a field goal and you're good. Just keep that in mind with key numbers if you're new to betting. Oh yeah, Mike, see if someone can change that as well. You're right. Thank you. So anyway, I'm with you. I like Julio though. He looked really good. He looked like old Julio. I know he didn't practice yesterday, but I'm assuming that's just he's a vet. He never practiced on Wednesday ever in Atlanta either.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was in his contract.
Yeah, right. But
I don't do Wednesday.
Let's not ignore though that Mike Evans has struggled against Marshawn Lattimore and in this matchup. Okay. This could be a spot where Tom Brady's like, oh, wait, I have a guy named Julio Jones that I can get the ball to 10 times this week, as he did with Antonio Brown all the time last year. Julio's my guy. And I still like Leonard Fournette at his price point. I think he could get a lot of work. What do you want to do with the Saints?
So awesome to see Michael Thomas back. In terms of opportunity value, who is okay, expected fantasy points, wide receiver 13 last week in PPR scoring. So when you're talking about that kind of opportunity value, and he's wide receiver 17 in salary ranking, I think he's pretty good at 6.5% ownership. He's one of those mid-tier wide receiver options who did great last week and isn't actually getting all that much love. Tampa Bay's defense is good, not great, in my opinion. If you want to go further down the list, I think Landry is fine at 5K, and same with Olave at 4,500. But Michael Thomas looks like that guy again, and if he's not popular in this potential shootout, why not him?
I don't disagree, but
Kamara's
what I want to know
banged
is you're doing with Alvin Kamara.
I mean, he's in the clear. You can't play him range right now. I don't know if that's true in a large field GPP sense because he's getting under 5% ownership, but we have his projection way below salary-based expectations.
All right. Anything else for this game?
I think Jameis is playing him in a stack, or if I'm doing a Tampa Bay stack and I want to get creative, and instead of having Tom Brady, I kind of sneak in Jameis Winston. That's how I'm playing him. I'm probably not doing it as a one-off.
All right. Let's keep it moving, man. Make an all right time. Plus, I'm just having a blast talking about these games because there's so many good ones. Did we get over 100 likes yet?
Come on, people. Let's go.
Are we there? Are we there? I can't tell. I'd moved to 111. All right. Let's go. 113. Can I get a 115? 115. Let me get a 120. 120. Let me get a 125. 125. Hit that subscribe as well. All right, guys. Carolina, New York. This is a game I think that I'm not saying it shoots out, and I don't love the stack potential here, but I love Barkley. I love McCaffrey. I think there's a lot of different pieces that if you wanted to get to, you probably could in this game. And if you're insane and you're in a large field tournament that has like 250,000 people in the millie, I don't think Kadarius Toney is the craziest option ever because he didn't play till the fourth quarter last week. Brian Dable was like, yeah, we have the way it's set up or whatever he said. But one of these days, Kadarius Toney, just based on skill alone, is going to have a huge game. And if you have a couple shares of him, it doesn't make for the worst idea.
If you are a coach on the Giants, unless there's something truly crazy happening behind the scenes, how do you not look at the game film of Kadarius Toney's touches and say, we need to get him more touches? Barkley looked great, but Toney on his limited workload clearly looked like the most explosive player in the receiving core, that depleted receiving core, by the way. One of the big swings and misses I had, which happens sometimes in GPPs, was that Christian McCaffrey was going to perform more like 10K Christian McCaffrey of the past. Didn't happen in week one. Even at 8.9K, he's got to get to 26.5 points before he really starts hurting you. And he hasn't actually hit 26.5 fantasy points since week one of 2021. We're starting to get pretty far away from that point where at 8,900, his score really, really hurts you. So DJ Moore is actually the most interesting player for me on this team. I will definitely have some DJ Moore. I realize he's at 10% ownership. But in terms of most interesting Panther, that's where I'm going. I'll certainly have pivot plays from Taylor down to McCaffrey. But Robbie Anderson's a large field piece that I'm somewhat interested in, bailed out by one long touchdown. Moore is the most popular and my favorite Panther this week.
For sure. And Robbie Anderson, it's not like he's Curtis Samuel or Donovan Peoples-Jones price point. And personally, I think he should be. I don't think what I'm saying is I don't think he should be. If we're just looking at guys who saw an unexpected amount of targets, and involvement last week, I don't think that he should be 700 or 700 more than Curtis Samuel. I don't think he should be almost 1,000 more than DPJ, 1,200 more than Kadarius. I just think that price point is okay, but it does nothing to get me excited.
100%. Yep. That's how I feel the same way. Honestly, this Carolina offense, most rational play for the Carolina offense is highly concentrated with occasional deep shots to Robbie Anderson. Get the ball to Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore as much as humanly possible.
So someone said yesterday in a show, and I get where they're going with it, but you can't play Saquon Barkley at this ownership. You can though. Just hear me out. There's nobody behind him. Okay. It's Matt Breida. Daniel Jones threw 21 times last game, and Saquon Barkley led the team with a 33% target share. So, is this going to be, rookie Barkley with Eli Manning? Maybe not, probably not. But the volume he looked healthy again against a better Tennessee defense than we'll see against Carolina. They're at home. I know his prices come up, so I guess there's some things that work against them, some drawbacks here. But I still can't, in good conscience, look at Saquon Barkley and go, he's too high owned for me. I can get different in a million other ways. I think it's still an excellent spot for Barkley, given his volume and seemingly his health.
This is one of those situations where we can't overthink the situation. Yeah, he's popular, but I feel like I've said this 18 times already this year, but it's an important fundamental. Not every single piece in our lineups needs to be a leverage play. Not every single one has to be a value play.
Did you see the lineup that won the Millie?
Not the specific one you're talking about, the DraftKings Millie Maker.
He didn't have anybody below 8% outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He had some high-owned plays in that lineup.
Perfect example.
And he had Pittman, who was 27%.
If you play Saquon Barkley and he scores 30 fantasy points in a week where McCaffrey and Taylor underperform slightly, he's going to be in the optimal lineup. Fading him will not work. We're not saying you have to fade him or you have to play him, but let's say you play an Atlanta stack or something like that, or a Jacksonville stack or an Indy stack, one that has decently high percentage chances in our top stacks tool, but less than 5% of the field is on them. You can play a player like Saquon at 25% ownership in that lineup. You just have to make sure you're different elsewhere with enough pieces.
Exactly. And we saw that in the Millie for sure. Anybody else for the Giants you want to look towards?
So Wandale isn't practicing. Sterling Shepard, I'm not playing. I guess it's Kenny Golladay. I can't believe I'm saying it, but Kenny Golladay is the GPP piece if you're expecting someone other than Saquon or Kadarius Toney to succeed. I mean, this team has an almost 23-point implied total, favored at home suddenly. Weird.
Do you think this game goes over, though?
I just looking at it, I'm like, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. This team could win with a 21-point score just because they hold Carolina's two main weapons in check.
Okay. Yeah, it's possible, but all right. We got 4 to go, Matt. Cincy and Dallas. No Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush, baby. Game manager supreme. You should not be encouraged by him. I'll tell you that much. I do think that a guy, like CeeDee Lamb isn't the craziest idea here, but that's only as a leverage play. But I guess I'd have to see what his ownership is too, right? Where's he at?
CD is down to 2.1%. Yeah.
See, that to me looks okay. 6,900. He had a 30% target share last year. Only one game Dak Prescott missed. Cooper Rush started, targeted him 30% of the time, and Amari Cooper's no longer in Dallas. So, Matt, I get he's not a priority, and ownership speaks to that, but he is a good wide receiver and an amazing talent. He can get open. Tampa Bay's defense, look, smothering. Okay. Yeah. Smothering. I could see Lamb having one of those games where you go, wow, everyone else was pretty bad, but Lamb had a monster game. So do I love him? No, but I think at 6,900 at 2%, he is someone I'm willing to look at this week.
Just rapid fire, top of your head. What do you think the percentage chances that CeeDee Lamb scores 20 fantasy points in this game?
Do you have an actual you have an actual number on that?
Close to it.
Okay. I wasn't sure if okay. What are the percentage chances that he scores 20?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. 30%?
Okay. I thought it was closer to 5 to 15%, but if that's the case,
20. Okay. 100 yards in. Well, hold on. What would give him 20? 80 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown?
Yeah. Roughly mid-tier wide receiver one production and a touchdown. So I think then if you're just talking about those percentage chances, again, we're just doing a thought experiment. We're not even doing back of the napkin math. Compare that to 2.1% ownership. that means he's a fine GPP play. His leverage score is so-so. It's right around 0 actually right now on our boom bust tool. But the bottom line is he's the best receiving option on this team. The way I saw this first and foremost with Cooper Rush taking over is that Tony Pollard should expect an increased target share, as should Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Schultz is getting almost no ownership. So he is actually my favorite. But I like this thought experiment with CeeDee Lamb because the ceiling is obviously highest for him. And with nobody on him, I can see a way, I can weave a narrative, even though the projection is below salary-based expectation, that he becomes a really interesting one-off GPP play.
I like it. And I see you guys asking for the MGM link. I guess, I don't know, is there a wrong one in there? We're going to throw it in chat right now. Mike, do you have the right one? All right. We'll throw that in there right now. So hold on, it'll come in chat, and it'll be, if you're watching this after the fact, I'll make sure 100% that it's in the description for you.
And we'll pin the comment too.
And the pin comment to make your life a little bit easier. All right. So what about Cincy?
I think it's a get right situation. I think T. Higgins is going to play, which I think lowers the chances that Hayden Hurst succeeds. But at 3,600, go for it if you're stacking them up. And Joe Burrow, in expected fantasy points, man obviously played an extra quarter, but he is going to throw a lot. And so Jamar Chase is absolutely a great play. I think T. Higgins, if he plays, is really strong as well. I think Jamar Chase at 8K is going to be really overlooked because people are going to try to bounce up for those 8,900 or even those Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor level players. I think he's a really, really interesting starting piece for a tournament roster. And then I think Joe Mixon, while he has a projection below salary-based expectation, if I'm stacking this game thinking that there is some shootout potential, he's definitely in the mix as well.
I think Mixon could have a huge game here. Any of these guys could. I expect T. Higgins to play as well. So we'll see. Unless there's news that I missed that he's not going to play.
It sounds like it's progressing towards playing is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon in that expected fantasy points metric to start the season. Number 1 and number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. T. Higgins is sub 6K though. If he plays, he's not going to be limited because it's a concussion. So that is a spot that I will absolutely be looking at. But that retooled Cincinnati offensive line's got to figure some shit out real quick. I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a very good pass rush. It's clearly the strength of their defense, but you got to figure that out. If you're going to, you can't let Burrow get sacked 7 times in a game. Get picked. What was he picked 5 times or something? I mean, that can't happen. And they still went to overtime. Give
the Steelers some credit, but I definitely agree.
No. Steelers deserve a lot of credit, but 7 sacks is still an indictment on the offensive line as well, right?
Yes, I did see some PFF analysis that said that Joe Burrow is holding the ball longer than the average quarterback, that some of these sacks are on him, in the sense that he needs to get rid of the ball at a certain point because any offensive line will break down.
That can make sense. All right, let's see. Time in the pocket. Who stood in the pocket for the longest in week 1? It was average time in the pocket. I'm looking. Joe Burrow, 2.64 seconds. It's up there. I don't know. I'd have to look into it a little bit more to see if there's anything else I'm missing. But all right, thank you. Mike just told me links are in chat. Put them in the description too. If you want the $200 at MGM, my fault. I know you guys were asking. Got that squared away. Description in chat. Just bet the game tonight. Either team scores $200. You put $10 on it using that link when you sign up, or wait till Sunday to bet the Sunday games, or bet the Sunday games today. Just don't do it Friday or Saturday. Seattle and San Francisco. Seattle, man, the Geno Smith, they look great because the Broncos look bad. And it was, I say they look great because it was so many other things that kind of made them look great. But Geno, I will give him credit. I think Geno played a gutty game. I think he played well enough. I think he played well enough. I do to get the win. And the Broncos played poorly enough and were coached poorly enough to give them that win. But with that in mind, I still don't want to do anything with Seattle this week. Out maybe a few shares of Penny because he has that explosiveness and can rip off huge runs. I don't want to target the passing game. No, I don't. I don't have much to say on this one.
This really feels like a trap to try to say that Seattle comes out firing a second game on the road in San Francisco, because talk about a team that is coached certainly well. That's San Francisco. I know they lost one last week. It's almost like a complete outlier, that game in the rain against Chicago. But I will say they need some work in coming back. They are a team that likes to be playing from ahead, not coming back from behind. I don't think that's going to be a problem today or this week against Seattle at home. They got 25 implied points in Seattle. While they may outpace their implied total of 15.5, it's still not enough where I'm going to bet on this team from an individual standpoint, with the exception of Rashad Penny. At 5,400, under 3.5% ownership, he's a good enough player and can outpace his game environment where I will take chances with nobody else on him.
All right. I don't really like San Francisco either, man. Well, hold on. Let me back up a little bit here. I think Jeff Wilson is perfectly fine. His ownership is going to dictate a lot of that right now. He's like 7%. I would take probably Jeff Wilson over $5,600 James Robinson. They are 8.5 point favorites. But my question for you is an important one. If you had to say right now, if Trey Lance is good or not, what would your answer be?
Yes, he's good.
And last week they were in monsoon type conditions. So I'm not, but has he shown anything that he's good yet?
So can I, the long answer, and the reason I'll say yes, is because in the advanced metrics that I tend to look at, like expected points added, which is how many points a play gives you versus the league-based expectation, a quarterback rush is one of the most valuable things to do successfully well. We've seen that when teams like have no idea what to do with Lamar Jackson-led teams when he's playing at his best. So
Jalen Hurts against the Lions last week.
The rush is the tide that lifts all ships. If he's even a league average passer on a per pass basis, the rushing upside makes him a well above average quarterback on a per play basis, if that makes sense.
So is he good for his receivers?
That is relative, because from a fantasy perspective, we don't have as many opportunities. He's taking them. He's rushing, but he's also giving rushing opportunities to Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel. By the way, Jeff Wilson is the play of the slate if you're looking at specifically the Stokastic projections. We got him at running back 9 in terms of projection rank. He's running back 35 on DraftKings, 5,100. And the ownership expectation right now is low. 7.2%. I expect that to increase significantly by Sunday. But if it stays anywhere near that sub 10%, he is an unignorably good value. While I like Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel, we don't usually see that. Such a high projection versus salary and then low ownership, very rare.
It is true. And Seattle could take a massive step back. Last week certainly felt like an emotional thing for a lot of the 12th man. It was wild, and they still should have lost. But I'm with you. Clownin, thank you for the super chat. Says target the defense that plays Burrow. Remember Titans in the playoffs and last week horrible line. That's the thing though, man. Like they fixed this line up. I remember reading a PFF article that said that, and not to say that that's the be all end all, right? But that said that this is arguably the most improved line year over year. So I'm trying not to overreact to 1 week, especially against that Pittsburgh defensive line. So I'm definitely higher, it seems, Clownin, than you are on this Cincinnati offense going forward. And also, I can't remember. It was Clayton that said, I'm out of supplies already. I'm going with a feeding tube next week, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, if you take a picture of your IV drip, if you're there next week, and we'll throw you some love.
We're almost through it though. We're doing fine. We started at like 11:05, so we're not doing all that bad, if you ask me. You ready to move on to these final 2 games?
Yeah, I think so. We didn't mention Metcalf had a huge target share, and so at wide receiver 12, he's expensive, but at low ownership, even in a bad game environment, should be in your GPP pool.
Yep. And I also do not think Kittle plays this week. Just personal opinion. I don't think he plays. I saw someone call him George Brittle on Twitter, which I found kind of funny. Guy's always hurt. All right. New England going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an early game, but like I said, we're going from totals from highest to lowest. I think you guys understand why. Probably appreciate it. If you do, hit that thumbs up. New England, though, laying 2.5 against Pittsburgh, 40 points here. Mac Jones experiencing back spasms last week, should be okay this week. It's a mess of a team. There are 12 games on this slate. There are 23 other teams that I can look at. Do I really need to worry too much about this Patriots offense?
How about no?
Exactly. Really don't. Really don't.
I mean, maybe Jacoby Myers, maybe Damian Harris with Ty Montgomery on IR, but you don't need to worry about. I think you said it perfectly. There's enough options. If you're playing less than 150 lineups, you just don't need to really consider this. It just doesn't have slate winning potential, in my opinion.
Me neither. And Pittsburgh, Najee Harris said he's good, but he had x-rays on that same foot that he was dealing with the Liz Frank injury prior to the beginning of the season. Deontay Johnson's probably going to get a lot of targets. Pat Freiermuth is the one that kind of intrigued me last week. Got a lot of looks. Do you like? Yeah, and Josh Gillum said Deontay Johnson price on DK at 5,800 is nice. Do not disagree at all, dude. 5,800, even in a low total game. If you wanted to sprinkle in some Deontay Johnson at 5,800 in a full PPR like DraftKings is, I get it. I'm not enamored with anybody from Pittsburgh, but I don't think they're as much of a wash as the Patriots are either.
I would agree with that. I will say that based on Trubisky's lack of efficiency, our Stokastic projections, which are obviously based on not just last week, but historical rates as well, the projections for these skill position players, especially in the passing game, are in free fall for the Steelers. They're really, really worried long-term about the upside, especially touchdown upside for these players. Freiermuth is fine at 4,400. You can fit 4,400 or a 4,700 Claypool into your lineup and still be fine and get all the chalk players you need. Even Pickens at 3,600. Actually, that might be my favorite from this group. But if we're not going to have touchdown upside and Najee Harris is still going to be 6,200, it's a little rich for my blood. It's really tough. Deontay Johnson, too. Our projections look bad. I think he looks great. Deontay Johnson, that crazy sideline catch.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about touchdown upside, slate winning upside, 35-point upside. The Steelers are not playing offense like that right now, and they might not be able to with Mitch Trubisky at the helm. I hope I'm wrong. New England's defense doesn't suck either.
How much worse? What percent worse is Trubisky than 2021 Ben Roethlisberger,
though? I think that Ben Roethlisberger's DGAF last year in the league, he couldn't throw deep, but at least he was willing to.
Yeah, that is true. He was still chucking it all the time, even if it was, up in the bleachers.
And he was moving away from rushing plays constantly to check it down to Deontay Johnson.
It's true. And we know that he loved Deontay Johnson as well. So I think you have a good point there. Let's wrap this one up. Jets, Cleveland, and Matt, as we always say before we get to the last one, those of you who have stuck around, right, who are now emaciated, right, just muscles have atrophied. You can't get out of your chair, but you're still here hanging with us for the Marathon Matchup Show. You guys are the ones that make this worthwhile because, hey, listen, this is a tough show to do sometimes as well. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're still here. Chronic Smith said, diapers full. That's good. You got the adult diapers on?
The depends are worked.
Putting in work. Larry said, come on, Laffy, I got to pee. All right, no more stalling. I'm telling you, they'll hang out. We'll hang out and we'll get ourselves ready. Jets, Cleveland, full disclosure here, I'm laying 5.5 on Cleveland. I just think that's a crazy line. I still think even without Deshaun Watson, this is a far superior team than the Jets in Cleveland for their home opener. Give me that all day long. FanDuel, I think, still has 5.5. Everywhere else has 6. 5.5 to 6 is a massive difference. Get it if you can. But the New York Jets offense, Michael Carter, maybe based on, but is Breece Hall going to get more work this week? You know, I just hate targeting low scoring bad teams with low implied totals and the backfield, maybe not a full committee, but like a 60-40 or 65-35 with the potential to shift. 16.5 point implied total. What are we doing, Matt?
All right. I get what you're saying. This is the only time I feel like maybe we really don't agree here, because I think that Joe Flacco, maybe this is more hot takey than I realize. I think that Joe Flacco has officially graduated from the Ryan Fitzpatrick DGAF club and is going to throw 50 times a game for this Jets team. And I think this team is going to be playing from behind a lot. And now suddenly I think Breece Hall is in the comeback mode, pass catching running back role. And so now I think I can actually play Breece Hall if DGAF Joe Flacco shows up, throws 50 times in a losing effort, and Breece Hall's only 5,200 and 0.3% owned. Nobody's on him. Nobody. I'm not saying it's the most likely thing, but I'm actually seeing a scenario where this game goes over its total, where Michael Carter, because of game script, doesn't get utilized. He's only 3% owned, so he's certainly not out of the range of outcomes. But again, nobody's on Elijah Moore. Nobody's on Corey Davis. Garrett Wilson got involved, 8 targets on 49% target share. And even Braxton Berrios was getting playing time. Look, I'm not saying this is a good play. This is probably the stack I'm playing that you should not. But I see a scenario where this goes well against the Cleveland defense, which I think is closer to league average than above it right now.
I don't know if you can let him do that. He threw 59 times last game. They had 9 points. He averaged 5 yards per attempt. They had 9 points on 59 pass attempts, dude. It's insane. I get what you're saying.
I didn't say he got good grades at the DGAF school, but he went.
Yeah, right. He failed, but he learned a little bit while he was there. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. It's possible. The one play I like from this game, only because he's cheap. I don't want to overreact from week one if his price came up, but it didn't. I think DPJ actually is fine at 4,400. If you need a cheap option, like maybe you are going with the Cup or the Jonathan Taylor, or you just, have a more high-end lineup you're loading it top heavy. DPJ last week had a 32% target share. He was targeted 11 times. And I'm just not convinced Amari Cooper, with all the history of injuries and being banged up and hobbled, like maybe he's just not the same player that he was. So they're going to run the ball a lot. Nick Chubb's going to get a lot. Kareem Hunt's going to be involved. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe this is a year where he comes out and he's decent. Plus, it's the New York Jets. So at 4,400, could I get that game Matt and I were talking about, the 6 for 80 and a score? I think you can with him, and he's very cheap.
I think those are large field, interesting options, especially with no one really on them. Amari Cooper, even at 5,400, I think he's okay. If you want to spin it that way, though, and say like he's lost a step, and Brissett doesn't really target players deep downfield that often, then DPJ actually becomes kind of interesting, especially at 2% ownership. But I think this is the type of week I do consider Nick Chubb. No, he doesn't catch passes. He's a home favorite. They're going to probably be in positive game scripts for much of the second half. His ownership is still just 6% at 21, 22 fantasy points. That's a 3x score at 7,100. That seems doable against a very porous Jets defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see it. DPJ also had like the worst separation rating per anyone in the league last week, but there's also a lot of players that just don't function on pure separation. Michael Thomas was third to the lowest. Right. Mike Evans was fourth. Hunter Renfrow was fifth. Deontay Johnson. So CeeDee Lamb, CeeDee Lamb was smothered all game, but you get the point. Anyway, this is fun, man. We're done. 12 up, 12 down.
Easy as that. Win fast, man. Thanks so much, guys, for hanging out the whole time. I mean, the diehards, the people who really know the supplies they need to make their way through, really appreciate you, just as Laffy said.
Yeah, man. They got their rations, and, well, hopefully everyone's still alive after this. Remember, Prize Picks, guys, $100 first catch deposit bonus is in the link. The MGM, it's $200 free. You're already on all these other sites. Shop around, take advantage of the free money. Bet any team tonight using that link when you put $10 in, or on Sunday. But like I said, don't bet it Friday or Saturday. Bet Sunday games today, or Thursday game today, or Sunday game Sunday. I know that's a mouthful, but you get the point. Appreciate you guys as always. Matt's at Draftaholic. I'm at Lafayette_D. Mike Lawrence producing this one. We'll catch you back here next week. Peace.
See ya.
Woo.